The German newspaper Welt published an exclusive today, which says China signals its readiness to send peacekeepers to Ukraine, but only under one condition: a United Nations Security Council mandate. That sounds very significant. China is reportedly truly ready to send its troops to provide security guarantees for Ukraine so that there will be peace in Ukraine and Russia will never repeat its aggression again. But there's a huge catch to this. China's statement that they are ready to send their peacekeepers is a clear move in coordination with Moscow, which is trying to turn these security guarantees into just a worthless piece of paper. Let's break down what exactly was said, what wasn't said, and why. In practice, this could turn out to be a huge trap. My name is Alexei Pechi. Today is August 23rd. Let's go through everything step by step. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, give it a like, leave any comment you want, and be sure to subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pechi News. The link to it is in the description of this video. So, today the German newspaper Welt writes that Beijing is ready to send soldiers to Ukraine as part of a peacekeeping mission, but only if there is a United Nations mandate to support this mission. And the source of this information is Eurodiplomats citing Chinese government circles. The position of Kyiv on the eve, Volodymyr Zelensky recently stated directly that China is not being considered as a guarantor of Ukraine's security in a potential peace deal. This is important because peacekeepers and guarantors are different roles, but politically they seem to overlap. We will now look into all the details. The background of Chinese diplomacy sounds like this: we support all efforts leading to peace, all interested parties should participate, and so on. Ivan the Fire and the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson expressed this at recent briefings in Munich and New York. Their rhetoric: China backs peaceful efforts, Europe should play a key role, and all parties should join in. China has always claimed we support peace. Now you see the main agenda, explained clearly and simply. What does all this mean? So, once again, the Chinese are saying we are ready to send our troops under the United Nations flag with a mandate from the Security Council and the United Nations, specifically as blue helmets, specifically as peacekeepers with a United Nations mandate. For your understanding, this immediately equals the veto right of the Russian Federation. United Nations peacekeepers are deployed by a decision of the United Nations Security Council. Russia is a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council with veto power. If Moscow does not sign the decision, there will be no peacekeeping mission in Ukraine. If it signs, it will set the rules, operation area, and mandate, either to observe or enforce peace. These are two different mandates. So, Beijing's willingness under such a condition automatically puts the keys to this scenario in the hands of the Kremlin. That's the letter of the procedure. What exactly do peacekeepers under a United Nations Security Council mandate mean? Just like with the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe mission after Minsk in 2014, after the Minsk agreements. It could be monitoring violations without any consequences, or it could be an option, quote, with the right to intervene if fighting resumes, if the mandate is written that way. So, there are two types of peacekeeping missions under the United Nations mandate. One mission is the kind that just comes in, monitors, observes, and writes reports. Like, for example, there was a ceasefire violation over there, here there was a shootout, here the sides moved heavy weapons by a certain number of kilometers, and that's it. There is a mandate under which these blue helmets with automatic rifles in their hands don't just observe the situation. And if they see that one of the sides is violating the ceasefire, they have the ability to enforce peace, the right to use weapons, to force either side to comply with the ceasefire. And here I understand all the concerns about this, and I want to emphasize that Moscow will be lobbying for this softer mandate. That is, without weapons for the observers, without any automatic response measures, just the use of blue helmets who stand and observe and can't do anything. The Chinese say, listen, we're not against it, we'll send our troops to Ukraine, but only in this format, just blue helmets who observe. If needed, Moscow can still block their actions at any time through the United Nations Security Council. Why did Beijing leak this information to the Europeans? China's strategy is clear. It presents itself as a peacemaker, ensures it's included in any security framework, and maintains strong bargaining power with Moscow. And Reuters keeps quoting the Chinese formula over and over: all parties must participate. That's the point. You need China to reach an agreement. How does Kyiv see it? If the mission is a real safety cushion, meaning armed contingents, clear rules of engagement, the right to enforce peace, automatic sanctions, and automatic arms supplies to the Ukrainian armed forces in case of violations, then yes, that's a plus. And even if the Chinese take part in this mission, that's fine, no problem. The Chinese won't agree to this. A Chinese flag on a uniform doesn't mean anything without a mandate and rules. Kyiv has already rejected China as a guarantor. China isn't being considered, as President Zelensky made clear. So the question is off the table. How does Russia perceive this news? As an opportunity? If Beijing joins the mission, the Kremlin can tell Trump and Europe that all sides are represented and balance is maintained. Moreover, all of this is within the framework of the Security Council, in line with Lavrov's demand to discuss guarantees only with the participation of the Russian Federation. This creates a convenient framework for Moscow. No automatic decisions. Every delivery and sanction must be coordinated, taking into account the opinions of all sides. All of this should be discussed only at the United Nations Security Council, where China and Russia will block every decision. That's exactly why the European Union has been speaking so firmly in recent days about clear, tough security guarantees for Ukraine and the snapback mechanism. In other words, a rapid reimposition of sanctions. The United States is watching this. Washington is traditionally cautious, welcomes any constructive contribution, but relies not on the color of the beret, but on three things. Stop. The conditions for Russia are air and intelligence support, and the compatibility of the mission with future guarantees. If so-called peacekeepers just freeze the front on Moscow's terms, that's Minsk Agreements 3, not real peace. That's exactly what Moscow is trying to do now. The practical test here is the makeup of this military contingent in the classic United Nations format. The core of this peacekeeping mission is always provided by a country to which the parties to the conflict have minimal objections. China's role is highly controversial. Kyiv has a lot of questions for Beijing, from trade with Russians to grey supply chains of components for Russian weapons. It's not surprising that the reaction in Brussels is also mixed, as European media report. Some see an opportunity, others see a risk. So what's next if this is the news? If this is just testing the waters, then in the coming days we'll see clarifications from China in the style of their Ministry of Foreign Affairs, saying that China is committed to peaceful efforts and will play a constructive role. Blah, blah, blah. But if Beijing really wants to get involved, then there will be talk about the mandate format, the composition of the mission, the coordinates of the zones of responsibility, and so on and so on. So if China starts talking about this, then they're serious. This will be a test of readiness. Readiness, readiness. This isn't about taking pictures at checkpoints or somewhere near the front line. It's about real rules of engagement, not about blue helmets, even without a rifle in their hands, but with a pen and a tablet, just recording what they observe. But really, troops with the right to enforce peace? That's why the headline, China will send peacekeepers to Ukraine, is loud, but with a huge, huge asterisk. Only if the United Nations Security Council gives its approval. That means only if Russia itself allows it. Kyiv has ruled out China as a guarantor. Europe is uneasy due to the weak United States mandate. They look at the substance, not at the flags. So if anyone today dreams that, Chinese helmets will come and then peace will definitely come, well, you'll have to come down to earth. Without automation, without real rules, that won't be peace, it'll just be a staged pause in this war, and Chinese peacekeepers definitely won't do anything to achieve peace in Ukraine. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's all for now, take care, goodbye, subtitles by Dimatozok.